Stand. Who has believed our report, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? For he shall grow up before them as a tender plant and as a root out of the ground. He has no form or comeliness, and when we see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. He is despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And hid as they were our faces with him. He was despised, and we did not esteem him. Surely he has bore our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we esteem him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and by his stripes we are healed. All we are like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, and he opened not his mouth, and he was laid as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before the shearers in the slaughter. So he opened not his mouth. He was taken from prison from judgment. He was cut off from the land of the living. From the transgression of my people he was stricken. And they that made his grave was the wicked. But with the rich his death, because he had done no violence, nor any deceit out of his mouth. Yet it pleased the Lord to, somebody say, to bruise him. He has put him to grief. When you make his soul an offering to sin. And I'm going to end on this last clause. He shall see his seed. He shall prolong his days. And the pleasure of the Lord shall prosper his hand. Let's go to Luke, the 23rd chapter. I promise you I won't be long. Amen. I say it often. If you push me, I'll sit down. And I don't think you did it, I'll keep going. Luke 23, let's start at verse number 32. There were also two other criminals led with him to be put to death. And when they had come to the place called Calvary, there had crucified him, and the criminals, one on the right hand and one on the other on the left.
Wow.
Then Yeshua said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. And they divided his garments and cast lots. And the people stood looking on, but even the rulers with him sneered, saying, He saved himself. He saved others. Let him save himself, as he is the Christ, the chosen of God. The soldiers also mocked him, coming and offering him sour wine. And saying, if you are the king of the Jews, somebody say, save yourself.
Save yourself.
And an inscription was also written over his head in Greek, Latin, and Hebrew, this is the king of the Jews.
Right.
Then one of the criminals who hanged blasphemed him, saying, if you are the Christ, save yourself and save us with you. But the other answering rebuked him, saying, do not even fear God, seeing you are under the same condemnation. And we indeed justify being given our rewards, but this man has done nothing. Then the man said, Jesus, Lord, when you come into your kingdom, as is written, remember me. And Jesus said unto him, surely I say to you today, and when I come into paradise, oh my God, you shall be with me. Now it was the 6th hour, and it was darkness all over the earth until the 9th hour. Then the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was torn in two. Y'all should have got happy. And when Jesus had heard out with a loud voice, Father, I commit my hands into your spirit. Having said this, he breathed his last breath. Okay. Having breathed his last breath. Do me a favor, if you will. Some of y'all ain't open your mouth all day. Amen. Do me a favor, if you will. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, he was down, but not out. Do me a favor and look at somebody else and say, Jesus was down, but he was not out. Now y'all better help me preach. Should I preach preachers, push preachers real good? Y'all push me real good, I'll sit down. All right. From the beginning of time, there have always been people who have come with claims of being the Messiah.
Come on.
From the beginning of times, there was a man from New Jersey by the name of Father Divine. Father Divine had a following about 5,000 people, 5 million people, and Father Divine told many people that he was the Christ.
All right.
Father Divine had a following and said he could do miracles, and even had the people believing that when he died that he would rise again. Father Divine died in 1965, and his followers began to worship and said in 3 days that he would rise again, but it's 2013 and he's still dead. Sweet Daddy Grace, sweet Manuel Grace, the United House of Prayer. Oh my God. A man who came from Cape Town, Verdi, and Sweet Daddy Grace believed that he was a reincarnate of Christ. Sweet Daddy Grace claimed to do miracles, and oftentimes they would forge miracles. I actually like the House of Prayer. They kind of moved from that doctrine. And so he would say he would walk on water, but what he was really walking on was glass. One day he actually tried to do a miracle and he tripped. In 1959, Sweet Daddy Grace died, and my grandmother told me in Savannah that they were praying and dancing that said Daddy was getting up. They even built the mausoleum so they could brag about a miracle that was going to happen, but that was in 1959, and Sweet Daddy Grace is still dead. Not too recently, there was a man named Sun Moon, and so Sun Moon said that the Christ was a perpetrator. He said that Christ did not finish the work, so he came to finish the work that Christ started. And so what the man did, he came and said he was Christ finished, but guess what? That somehow that Christ caught cancer. And 2009, that Christ caught cancer and he died, and tell somebody he's still dead. Dr. Malachi Z. York, a man in Eaton, Georgia. Y'all ought to read something behind the Bible. It's really interesting. There's a man, he's a black man. His name is Dr. Malachi Z. York. And so what he calls his following the Holy Tabernacle. They bought up Eaton, Georgia. They bought up a lot of pyramids. They built the Sphinx. You can Google it. He went to jail on about 200 counts of child molestation. And what he said was he was a reincarnate of the Rabbi Yeshua. What's Jesus' Hebrew name? Okay. Jesus is English for Yeshua. See, you learned something today. So he said that he was the reincarnate of the Rabbi Yeshua. Now, this rabbi didn't have no discipline over his penis, and he happens to be in jail. So another